Don't go to college, just go to a trade. You're not even in a trade. You're telling people to go into a trade, you're not even in a trade. As a matter of fact, some of the people telling you that have a college degree. Do you notice super rich people never tell their kids to go into a trade? You notice that? Super rich people always send their kids to college, and they always send their kids to prestigious colleges. My biggest issue, and this is completely aside from the like college is a scam thing, because that's fucking stupid, but my bigger issue with the whole you don't need to go to college, you can go to a trade shit is you're acting as if those two things are substitutes. They are not. They are completely different pathways that will lead you to completely different outcomes in life. It's not a matter of like, oh, you don't have to do one, just do the other. That's not how it works. You go into a trade, you become an EMT. Somebody else goes to college, they become a neurosurgeon. Not only are those two different jobs, those are two different lifestyles. Those are two completely different pathways in life. The big one I hear is you can go to the trade, become an electrician, or you can go to college, become a fucking engineer, and make 3 times the amount as the highest earning electrician. You could go into a trade and learn HVAC and make a ton of money. Or you can go to college and become a fucking aerospace engineer. Like, it's just, people speak about them as if the two can be replaced. They cannot.
I'm not really sure what the argument is here. If she's saying that the problem with this is that she's framing it as a versus, right? She's looking at it as you should, and I'm assuming because I haven't done any research on a girl in general, and I'm just reacting based off of real time, looking at it like you guys are looking at me, right? Is that she's making it like a versus. It's like a college versus a trade. You know what I'm saying? And everybody is not going to be a neurosurgeon. Let's just keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody is not going to be a physician. It's plenty of people that go to college every single day and they got $100,000 in student debt, can't pay it off, and they're saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I went." It depends on the curriculum. It depends on what you go to. All engineers are not built the same. There's different types of engineers: the software engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, prompt engineers when it comes to AI. So you have to evolve based off of the changing ways. And neither one of them are better than the other. It just depends on what your long-term vision is for it. I know people that have sold their plumbing companies for millions, like tens of millions of dollars, and then they pivoted into just investing and going into a completely different thing. I know people that went to college and became lawyers and never actually leverage their law degree to do anything meaningful, and they just sitting there with a bunch of debt.
Can anyone explain to me how I have 2 degrees? I have 2 degrees. Oh, and a certificate. A little extra, right? I have a certificate. May not be a master's, but it's something extra along with the 2 degrees, I'm trying to apply for jobs right now, and the thing is that the only person I have responding to me is a man from a tech company saying, "Hey, you want to answer some customer service problems? You want to answer some customer service calls?" No, Bart, I don't want to answer your calls. No offense, but I'm a little more qualified than just to be sitting around answering your customer service calls. Bart, okay? I'm sorry, but Bart is the only one who's responding to me. So what am I supposed to do? And I'm looking down at these and I'm looking at them and I'm kind of wondering. I'm like, what was this for again? Oh, I don't know.
Okay, we need to talk about this video I seen of this girl going off on college versus trade. And she was going off saying like, you have people that went to college saying, go get a trade, don't go to college. And she was like, you never see wealthy people tell their kids go to trade school and all that. Like, she's making it like a versus, like college is better than trade. She was like, if you go to a trade, that's a EMT. But if you go to college, you could be a neurosurgeon, or I forgot what the other example she used. Oh yeah, she was like, you go to college, you could be an engineer. But if you go to trade, you'll be an electrician. And she was like, it's way too different paths, way too different lifestyles. And, she's harping on, college is always the best option. And I think the issue with this is, you can have it as a versus, but they're two totally different things. The people that are saying go get a trade instead of going to college is basically telling you, it just depends on what you want to do. First of all, everyone isn't going to be a neurosurgeon. So maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe someone is looking at it from a financial standpoint, like, hey, I don't want to get in all this debt and do nothing with this degree. Maybe they want to go to trade, do their own trade, and maybe even start their own business. The amount of money would almost be the same. You can go to college and become an engineer, and there are different engineers, but you can spend, upwards to $100K trying to be an engineer, or go to trade, be an electrician, get your contractor's license, and possibly make more, over time than being an actual, electrical engineer, making $200K. And I think the biggest difference that she does not point out is that you go to college and graduate. If you didn't have a scholarship, you have that debt. Even some scholarships, not all of them are a free ride. But you're going to get in some debt. Trade school, you're going to get in debt too, but it's nowhere near the college education debt. But the main reason you see people who went to college tell people go get that trade is the job market. I don't even want to say 9 times out of 10, but when you go get a trade, it is easily available to find a job with that trade than it is to get that college education and try to get that specific skill set job. Because you even have people that went to college to be lawyers and can't even, get some lawyer type job. Some people are lawyers with that degree just sitting on the shelf because they can't get hired. They might want to go be a lawyer with AT&T, like maybe some corporate type stuff for this hotel or stuff like that. Unless they trying to be like a criminal defense type lawyer or something. And they don't even pay that well. Public defender type stuff. So you might go be an engineer, go to school, be an engineer. There's no guarantee you're getting that job. There's no guarantee. Before even computer science engineering, that was a highly set forth job, like between, I want to say up until about 2015, even 2020, but then you got all the tech layoffs after 2020, and they're still laying those people off. So if you don't have like the most best type portfolio to show for it, you ain't getting it. And a lot of time in college, you don't have that portfolio to show. You might go to college, because this is an example that, doesn't favor her. You might go to college for photography, spend $60K to $70K on that degree, because not all of it's photography. They making you take other bullcrap electives like math, science, and, dynamic earth, with that. So you spending 60 to 70K on a photography degree or a film degree, and then you get out and it's like, now what? You know, will you land that job at Warner Brothers? Will you land that job with Sony? Can you go work for Disney? You know, just think about it. Like, if you are one out of, 10,000 people that graduated that year in film school, photography school, what are the odds that you're going to get that job with a major company? Plus, you have to compete with the people that join sororities and fraternities. You do better go and get it as a trade, and not spending 70K for that degree. But you don't know that when you're 17 signing up. Yeah, you might could do some research here and there, but back then, they weren't people telling you that. That's why when you see people saying, go get that trade, you're starting off in your 20s, early 20s, making 50 to 70K almost with that trade job. You go get an electrical engineering degree. 4 years, maybe 5 years, if you don't want to kill yourself. Because you have to take all of those other electives that ain't got nothing to do with electrical engineering. All of these projects, all of these papers. So you spending 4 to 5 years getting that degree. Now you go get that trade, that's 1 to 2 years tops. Probably 1 year. I'm gonna say 1 to 2, depending on if they got like summer classes and stuff. You might could accelerate that. And you instantly become an electrician. You may start working overtime. So by the time you're 30, you're probably debt free. If you didn't have to go out and, buy cars and do all this stuff, you smart with it, you got your down payment for your house, late 20s. But you go get that degree in college, you ain't getting no internships, the school not helping you out. You got this degree, took 4 to 5 years. Now you're 23. You're sitting on the shelf because no job wants to hire you. They all hired the tradesmen. You didn't join a sorority. You didn't join a fraternity. Now you're, working DirecTV. You're working at Lowe's, you're working at Home Depot, because you gotta work, So now you're 30 and you landed a few interviews and you finally got that engineering job, but it ain't paying no 200, 300K. You gotta work your way up, and your supervisors don't even have the engineering degree. Now you're looking like, okay, will I ever move up? You might move up when you're 40. So that's really the college degree experience for most people. Unless you're going medical or you went for lawyer, engineering, or like some STEM field, and you joined a sorority or fraternity, you probably good. You probably good. But STEM is getting overrun by, AI and stuff. And Trump is, well, I'm not going to say just Trump, but the government, period. The politics, the STEM field, they want immigrants to take those jobs, because why would I hire this student who went to college got super good grades. He's in $100,000 worth of debt. Why would this company want to pay him $150 to $200K a year when I can give, a immigrant free college to come here for free, or maybe he got that college degree over there? Why would I pay the American $200K a year when I can bring in the immigrant, pay him $75K a year, and hold that over his head? He's going to be happy with that $75K, and say, hey, you could live in America as long as you work here. You can work for us for 5-10 years. We got your visa. Here's $75K. And they probably gave his whole family, like if he came here with his family, they're going to give him food stamps and all of that too. But now you have an American with $200K worth of debt he owes the government. He got that degree paper, but man, we hiring Mohammed, or I forgot what, a lot of the Indian people. They get a lot of those engineering type tech degrees, and they own all the businesses. So when you hear somebody say, go get that trade, it's because they know, man, these companies not really hiring college degree people. You go get your college degree, go be a bartender. That's the type of wacky world we're living in. And those wealthy people that send their children to Harvard and stuff like that, they got the connections already. And if you happen to be a lucky person and go to Harvard or go to Yale, you're going to make those connections regardless because you're there. Someone that's from a local no-name city that got good grades are probably still not making it into Harvard or Yale. Given those full rides, you got celebrity children, rich people children that are just buying their way into Harvard and Yale. Or they got some sorority fraternity ties to get into Yale, get into Harvard. And they're going to be roommates with other kids that already have rich parents that, they're going to create some app. They're going to create some business. They're going to be financial students and get all the stock picks. And, some of them don't even graduate. They drop out after a year or two because they already obtain wealth while they're in college. They're going to have some government contracts or something. They're going to build something. Most people that graduate from there go on to do good stuff, but they might have joined, like I say, a sorority or fraternity that helps them out with that process. So, yes, if we lived in a world where a college degree mattered, go for the college degree. It's a way better experience. Even with the debt, if you were able to get the job once you graduated, even if it was a year after you graduated, that would be fine. But 9 times out of 10, America does not care about that college degree. And no one is telling Gen Z that. No one told the millennials that. Now the millennials are telling Gen Z this, and Gen Z doesn't care. Like this woman or whatever. They're saying, hey, go get that trade. Yes, you might not make $1 million, but the odds of you getting a $200,000 job off the bat, with no networking, just a piece of paper saying, hey, I have a college degree, the hiring manager does not care. Google does not care. They would rather bring in an immigrant to do that for way cheaper. Why would they pay you $40 an hour when they could pay Patel $20 an hour to do the same job? You know, unless you're being a physician or a dentist or a veterinarian, you know, either something medical or like aerospace engineering, you know, unless you're getting something like that, it doesn't make sense to go to college. And even with the aerospace engineering, they really would rather pay an immigrant who have that degree than to pay you $200K. They don't want to give Americans anything. They would rather save $100 or $50K just to not pay you that. That's what we're living in. And you know, that lady's gonna find that out really hard. You know, don't go to college for art. If you want a bachelor's of art or you want a history degree, you know, you can go get your history degree. You go get your teaching degree, right? Look at all the videos of all the teachers that quit because they love teaching, but the kids are just horrible and the government basically is just using it as a front for contracts and other stuff to steal money. You know, they don't care if these kids get an education or not. They're just using it to their benefit. And the teacher could take it or leave it. You know, so I would say, you know, getting a college degree, if you have a scholarship or a full ride, go to college. If you can go to college for free on a scholarship or even half of that, you know, if they're willing to pay for your room and board and give you benefits on textbooks and stuff like that, I would say go to college. You know, if you don't have no scholarship, no anything, and you don't want to be a doctor, don't go to college. Even a teacher. If you want to be a teacher, because you can get your student loans forgiven if you're a teacher, but you have to do at least 10 years. I believe 10 or 7 or something like that. If you can stick it out and teach for 7 years, I would say it's worth it going to college. But anything else, go get a trade. You know, even if you love college and, you know, you think that's for you, you know, unless you can join a sorority, join a fraternity, and you're going for something that's a skill that's not readily available, then you can go to college. But other than that, you know, you can go be plumbing and work your way to a master plumber in like 5 years and make over $100K. You know, you could be a master plumber for, you know, a company that does constructions for rental property and stuff and make a crap ton of money. And you can have your contractor license, you know, hire a bunch of Mexicans to actually do the work and you just oversee it and you're making damn near $1 million a year. I wouldn't even say $1 million a year like that. You can in certain areas, but you might can make $500,000 a year. You know, so a trade gets you into opens a lot of doors. Believe it or not, it opens a lot of doors. Most of the time, the companies you're working for, they got good health insurance and stuff. So don't let that discourage you. The people that's telling you, the people that went to college and they're telling you not to go to college, why do you think that? You think they're just want to say don't go to college? No. People that went to college would love for everyone to have that college experience. But that piece of paper does not open the doors like the boomer generation said it did. You know, people have been going to college since the days of Alexandria, since Egypt. They all had that. Everyone went to college like that. College was something sacred. But now America does not care. They will import that labor. Before they pay a college graduate over $100K, they would rather give it to any foreigner that wants to come here and pay them less. Why? It's all a money thing. Why pay this person $200K a year when I can pay an immigrant $75K a year and keep him for 10 years? And I can cut their pay, and if they quit, we're sending them back. They have to work for us. They're got them by the collar. But that immigrant don't care, because that's the most money they'll ever see in their life. And they can still send if they send $1,000 back home a month, their family is rich back home. And then they're going to move their family here, start businesses and all that. Man, every Subway in Louisiana is owned by Indians. And you think ICE cares? No, ICE don't care. That's why ICE is cracking down on a lot of Mexican businesses. But that's all for show. That's all for show. So you just got to make your decision now. College or trade. College or trade. One isn't bad. One isn't worse than another. But going to college for anything you want to be is not worth it unless you got a full ride. If you got a full ride or half the ride paid for free, don't do it. Don't do it. But y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and put your story in the comments.